They vanished. Once a proud and chosen people, warriors, kings, priests, and prophets, they walked the hills of Samaria, worshipped at altars now broken, and raised their children in the shadow of Mount Ephraim. And then they disappeared. 10 entire tribes of Israel, more than 3/4 of the ancient kingdom, lost to history. Not merely scattered, but silenced, removed by conquest, forgotten by time. Or were they? Have you ever wondered what happened to them? Where they went? If their blood still flows through the veins of nations today? The Bible speaks of them. Prophets mourned their fall. And yet, in the echoes of Scripture and the whispers of prophecy, there remains a lingering question. Will they return? You are about to enter one of the greatest mysteries in all of biblical history. This is the story of the lost tribes of Israel. Can a house built on covenant crumble under the weight of pride? Can a nation chosen by God, led through the wilderness, fed with manna, guarded by fire and cloud, forget the one who called them by name? To answer the riddle of the lost tribes, we must go back, not to the day of their vanishing, but to the slow splintering of their soul. It began not with exile, but with division. The story starts with Solomon, son of David, the king of wisdom, the builder of the temple. His reign was glorious, golden, unmatched in wealth and splendor. Yet for all his wisdom, even Solomon fell. King Solomon loved many foreign women. Kings 11-1 his heart turned. The Lord had warned him, "You shall not intermarry with them, for surely they will turn away your heart after their gods." But Solomon built altars to Chemosh and Molech. He burned incense where his father had bowed in worship, and the Lord, who had given him everything, pronounced judgment. "I will surely tear the kingdom from you and give it to your servant." And so, even before Solomon's death, the seed of fracture had already taken root. When Solomon died, his son Rehoboam ascended the throne. He was young, proud, eager to rule with a heavy hand. The people came to him with a plea not of rebellion, but of mercy. "Your father made our yoke heavy. Now therefore lighten the hard service of your father, and his heavy yoke on us, and we will serve you." The elders, the seasoned men who had stood by Solomon's throne, counseled humility. But Rehoboam turned to the young men he had grown up with. They said, "Thus shall you say to them, my little finger is thicker than my father's thighs. My father disciplined you with whips, but I will discipline you with scorpions." 1 Kings 12:10-11. And so, with cruel words and a hardened heart, he answered the people. That day, the house of Israel broke. 10 tribes, Reuben, Simeon, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulun, Ephraim, and Manasseh rebelled. They tore themselves away from the throne of David and crowned Jeroboam as king. Judah and Benjamin remained. The kingdom split in two. The northern tribes formed the kingdom of Israel. The southern tribes became the kingdom of Judah. What had once been one nation, one covenant people, was now a house divided. But this was no simple political fracture. This was spiritual rebellion. You see, Jeroboam feared. Though he ruled the north, the temple God's chosen dwelling remained in Jerusalem. He thought, if these people go up to offer sacrifices at the temple of the Lord in Jerusalem, their heart will turn back to Rehoboam king of Judah. 1 Kings 12:27. And so he acted not out of faith, but self-preservation. He made 2 golden calves. He placed one in Bethel, the other in Dan. And he spoke chilling words, echoing the sin of Sinai. Behold your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt. Can you feel the tragedy? A people once led by fire, now bowed before gold. A nation once called holy, now bent its knees to the idols of convenience. And so began the descent of the northern kingdom. King after king rose, none walked in the ways of the Lord. Some were murderers, others were usurpers. All continued in the idolatry of Jeroboam. God did not remain silent. He sent prophets, mighty men filled with his spirit. Elijah called fire down from heaven on Mount Carmel to confront Baal. Elisha healed, warned, and wept. Amos roared from Tekoa, let justice roll down like waters. And Hosea, he lived out the pain of divine betrayal. Married to an unfaithful wife, he became a walking parable of God's broken heart. How can I give you up, O Ephraim? How can I hand you over, O Israel? Yet for all the warnings, the people refused to listen. They grew comfortable in compromise, blind to the rot. Their altars remained, but their hearts were far. Their sacrifices were many, but their obedience was absent. And slowly, inch by inch, they drifted toward the edge of judgment. Have you ever seen something beautiful unravel? A garment slowly pulled at the seam? That was Israel. Not torn in a day, but unraveled by decades of disobedience. Not conquered by a sword first, but by their own stubborn hearts. And still the Lord was patient. Still he called them my people. Still he yearned to gather them as a shepherd gathers scattered sheep. But they would not come, and so the breach remained. 10 tribes, lost to the covenant, separated from the temple, alienated from their calling. Their path would not lead to peace, but to exile. And as we will see in the next chapter, the day of their disappearance was drawing near. But before we move forward, pause. Ask yourself, where does division begin? It doesn't always come with violence or swords. Sometimes it starts with pride, with a refusal to listen, with a heart that insists on its own way. And sometimes it begins with worshiping God on our own terms. What happened to Israel isn't just ancient history. It's a mirror held up to every soul. What begins in compromise ends in collapse. And what was once chosen can become lost unless it returns. For they sow the wind, and they shall reap the whirlwind. Hosea 8-7. What becomes of a kingdom that cuts itself off from the source of its life? What happens when a nation forgets its God, yet clings to his name? The 10 tribes of the north, now called the Kingdom of Israel, had broken away. They had claimed their independence from the Davidic throne. They had forged a new path, one that they believed would secure their identity and freedom. But in their quest for freedom, they bound themselves to idols. From the very beginning, their foundation was cracked. Jeroboam, the first king, knew the danger of loyalty. If his people continued to journey to Jerusalem for the appointed feasts, Passover, Pentecost, Tabernacles, they would remember their unity. Their hearts might turn back to Judah. So he offered them a substitute, 2 golden calves, one in Bethel, the other in Dan, not foreign gods, not in name. These were presented as representations of Yahweh himself. Behold your gods, O Israel, ... The very words used by Aaron at Sinai, a new religious system was born, parallel in appearance, but hollow at the core. He established his own priesthood, not from the sons of Levi, but from the common people. He created new festivals, not according to the calendar of Moses, but according to his own design. It was a kingdom of imitation, a religion of convenience. And God saw it all. Surely this thing became sin to the house of Jeroboam, so as to exterminate and destroy it from the face of the earth. But Jeroboam was not the last. He was the first of 19 kings who ruled over the northern tribes. Of those 19, not one was said to have done what was right in the eyes of the Lord. Not one. Some, like Omri, brought political stability. Others, like Ahab, brought spiritual ruin. Ahab. Do you remember his name? He married Jezebel, a Sidonian princess devoted to Baal. Under their rule, Baal worship became state policy. Altars to the God of Israel were torn down. Prophets were hunted. The land groaned under the weight of idolatry. But God was not silent. In the days of darkest apostasy, he raised up a prophet of fire, Elijah the Tishbite. He stood before the king and declared, "As the Lord, the God of Israel, lives, before whom I stand, there shall be neither dew nor rain these years, except by my word." For 3.5 years the heavens were shut. Famine spread through the land. And then came Mount Carmel. Can you picture it? The prophets of Baal, 450 strong, shouting, dancing, cutting themselves, desperate for fire to fall. But there was only silence. And then Elijah. One altar, one prayer, one God. Answer me, O Lord, answer me, that this people may know that you, O Lord, are God. And fire fell from heaven. It consumed the offering, the stones, the water, the very dust of the earth. The people fell on their faces and cried, "The Lord, He is God, the Lord, He is God." But their repentance was fleeting. After the fire, they returned to their idols, and the spiral continued, king after king, murder after murder, idol after idol. The prophets kept coming. Amos, a shepherd from Tekoa, who thundered against their injustice. I despise your feasts, and I take no delight in your solemn assemblies. And Hosea commanded to marry a prostitute, so that his very life would be a testimony. I will no more have mercy on the house of Israel. His children were named Lo-Ruhamah, no mercy, and Lo-Ami, not my people. A nation that had once heard God say, "You shall be my people," now heard the terrifying reversal. "You are not my people, and I am not your God." Yet even then, God's mercy lingered. Through Hosea's tears came hope. Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be like the sand of the sea. And in the place where it was said to them, "You are not my people," it shall be said to them, "Children of the living God." The door was not yet closed, but time was running out. In the year 722 BC, the warning turned to judgment. The Assyrian Empire, cruel and vast, swept down upon Israel. They besieged Samaria, the capital city, for 3 long years. Inside the walls, famine and fear. Outside, battering rams and ruthless soldiers. And then it fell. The king of Assyria captured Samaria and carried the Israelites away to Assyria and placed them in Hala, and on the Habor, the river of Gozan, and in the cities of the Medes. They were uprooted, removed, torn from their land, their homes, their inheritance. The 10 tribes scattered among the nations. But why? The Bible gives no mystery. This occurred because the people of Israel had sinned against the Lord their God, and had feared other gods. They walked in the statutes of the nations. They built high places. They burned their sons and daughters in fire. They sold themselves to do evil. And so the Lord removed them from his sight, gone. Not enslaved like Judah in Babylon, not held captive with the hope of return, but scattered, lost, vanished into history. Their fields were left barren, their cities emptied. Their names Ephraim, Naphtali, Zebulun became echoes. Have you ever known something to be there, and then one day it's simply gone? A voice, a presence, a light? That was the fate of the northern tribes. But if the story ended there, it would only be tragedy. And yet, the story is not over. For though man forgets, God remembers. Though nations scatter, God gathers. And though the tribes may be lost to history, they are not lost to him. In the next chapter, we will listen for the echoes of prophecy, the promises whispered through time that the scattered sons of Jacob would rise again. Because the God who judges is also the God who restores. Therefore the Lord was very angry with Israel and removed them out of his sight. None was left but the tribe of Judah only. The day they vanished was not like any other. It did not begin with a sudden disappearance or a mysterious flight in the night. No, it was slow, dreadful, and violent. It was a day years in the making, shaped by stubborn rebellion, sharpened by repeated warnings, and sealed by judgment long foretold. Israel had forsaken her God. She had turned from the one who parted the Red Sea, who thundered on Sinai, who fed her with bread from heaven. She had exchanged the voice of the living God for the whispers of Baal. And so, in the year 722 BC, the hand of divine protection was lifted. The Assyrian Empire, mighty and merciless, came like a storm from the north. Shalmaneser V, king of Assyria, laid siege to Samaria. 3 years, that is how long the city held. 3 years of hunger, disease, fear. 3 years of mothers holding their children close, not knowing if they would survive the night. 3 years of priests praying toward a temple they could no longer reach. And then, it fell. Samaria was breached. The walls collapsed. The gates burned. The cries of war filled the streets. And with that fall, the fate of 10 tribes was sealed. They were taken. The king of Assyria captured Samaria and carried the Israelites away to Assyria and placed them in Hala, and on the Habor, the river of Gozan, and in the cities of the Medes. Not as slaves in one city, like Judah would later be in Babylon, but scattered, dispersed across a foreign empire. This was the Assyrian strategy to erase a people, to scatter them so thoroughly that they would forget their God, their customs, their name, and it worked. There's no record in Scripture of their return, no list of leaders coming back, as there is for Judah with Zerubbabel and Ezra. No rebuilding of their cities, no restoration of their tribes. They were gone. Have you ever read a family tree and seen a name and then nothing? No line after it, no children, no legacy. That was Ephraim, that was Asher, that was Naphtali. Cut off, but let us be clear, their exile was not unjust. The Scriptures make it plain, and they rejected his statutes and his covenant. They made for themselves metal images of 2 calves. They burned their sons and their daughters as offerings, and used divination and omens. Therefore the Lord was very angry with Israel, and removed them out of his sight. This was not merely a political conquest, it was divine discipline. A holy God will not be mocked. And yet, In the same breath that recounts Israel's unfaithfulness, there is sorrow, there is grief, there is a yearning, because this was not a foreign people. This was God's son. When Israel was a child, I loved him, and out of Egypt I called my son. But listen to the heartbreak. The more they were called, the more they went away. Yet it was I who taught Ephraim to walk ... I led them with cords of kindness. My heart recoils within me. My compassion grows warm and tender. Can you hear the anguish in God's voice? He had raised them, fed them, defended them, and now he was watching them be taken away, not only into a foreign land, but into spiritual oblivion. For what happens to a people when they forget who they are, when their language is lost, when their stories are silenced, when the Torah is no longer read to their children? They disappear, not in body, but in soul. The exile of the 10 tribes was more than displacement. It was dismemberment. The body of Israel had been torn apart. Only Judah remained, a flickering flame soon to be tested by its own captivity. But where was Ephraim? Where was Dan? Where were the tribes that once marched under banners in the wilderness, that stood at Sinai, that crossed the Jordan with Joshua? They were ... nowhere, and yet everywhere. For though they were lost to history, they were not lost to God. Though their names were erased from maps, they remained etched in the heart of their Father. I will scatter them among the nations, yet I will be to them as a little sanctuary in the countries where they shall come. God was not done. You see, the covenant made with Abraham was not easily broken. Though Israel had been unfaithful, God remained faithful. He had sworn by himself, and so even in exile, he preserved a remnant. He kept the flame alive hidden in foreign lands, burning beneath the ashes of forgetfulness. And in the whispers of the prophets, the promise remained that the scattered would one day return, that the lost would one day be found, that the 10 tribes, though unseen, were not forsaken. As we move forward, we will trace the prophetic trail. We will search the scriptures for promises buried in time, because the question is not only where did they go, but also, will they come back? And if so, when and how? The God who scattered is also the God who gathers. The shepherd who allowed his sheep to wander is the same one who will search every mountain and valley until each one is brought home. But the journey of return is a story for another chapter. I will surely gather all of you, O Jacob. I will surely bring together the remnant of Israel. They vanished from the land, but not from the plan. Though history closes its door on the 10 tribes, though records fade, names are lost, and memory grows dim, the prophets never stop speaking of them. Their voices rise like wind through the ruins, whispering promises that time cannot silence. Because God does not forget. He does not forget his covenant. He does not forget his people, and he does not forget those who are lost. Though the 10 tribes were torn from their land, God continued to speak of them through the mouths of his prophets' visions that pointed not only backward to judgment, but forward to restoration. Listen closely to the voices echoing across the centuries. The prophet Hosea, the one who lived the pain of betrayal, carried a message of unimaginable hope. Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be like the sand of the sea. And in the place where it was said to them, "You are not my people," it shall be said to them, "Children of the living God." This is not poetry alone. It is prophecy, a divine reversal. The same people who had been declared Lo Ami, not my people, will be gathered once more and called sons and daughters. Then the children of Judah and the children of Israel shall be gathered together, and they shall appoint for themselves one head. Did you hear that? Judah and Israel reunited. The breach will be healed, the kingdom restored. One people, one king, one shepherd. Centuries after their disappearance, the promise still stood. Jeremiah, the weeping prophet, saw a time when the Lord would bring them from the land of the north and gather them from the farthest parts of the earth. And not only Judah. In those days the house of Judah shall join the house of Israel, and together they shall come from the land of the north to the land that I gave your fathers for a heritage. Together, not divided, not lost, not forgotten. The God who scattered would regather. He had to, because his name is at stake. Ezekiel, exiled in Babylon, was given a vision of 2 sticks, one for Judah, one for Joseph, that is, Ephraim, the leading tribe of the 10. Join them one to another into one stick, that they may become one in your hand. And the Lord declared, Behold, I will take the people of Israel from the nations among which they have gone, and will bring them to their own land. And I will make them one nation, and one king shall be king over them all. Even in exile, even in loss, the vision was unity. Not merely restoration of Judah, but the whole house of Israel. This is not allegory. This is covenant faithfulness. Amos, who had thundered judgment against Israel's sin, ended his message with a promise. I will restore the fortunes of my people Israel. I will plant them on their land, and they shall never again be uprooted. Never again. Can you feel the weight of that? It means the exile of the 10 tribes was never meant to be permanent. Their scattering was a season, their silence a pause, but God's promise was eternal. Even Isaiah, whose vision stretched into the far future, declared, In that day the Lord will extend his hand yet a second time to recover the remnant that remains of his people. From Assyria, from Egypt, from the coastlands of the sea. Yes, Assyria, the very place to which the 10 tribes were carried. And what will happen? He will raise a signal for the nations, and will assemble the banished of Israel, and gather the dispersed of Judah from the 4 corners of the earth. Do you see it? He will raise a signal for the nations, and will assemble the banished of Israel, and gather the dispersed of Judah from the 4 corners of the earth. They disappeared into the pages of history, but history was never the end of their story. From the very beginning, the scattering of Israel was not just a punishment. It was a prophecy in motion, a divine mystery seated in exile, destined for redemption. Because the 10 lost tribes are not only part of the past, they are part of the future. They are written into the final movements of God's plan. And in the age to come, when the world trembles and kingdoms fall, their return will shake the earth. One people, one king. The prophet Ezekiel, exiled in a foreign land, was shown a vision. 2 sticks. One marked Judah, the southern kingdom. The other marked Joseph, which stands for Ephraim, the head of the northern tribes. God told him, Join them one to another into one stick, that they may become one in your hand. And then he declared, Behold, I will take the people of Israel from the nations among which they have gone, and will gather them from all around, and bring them to their own land, and I will make them one nation in the land, and one king shall be king over them all. Can you imagine it? The tribes that walked in division for thousands of years united, no longer Ephraim and Judah, no longer scattered. but gathered whole. This is not metaphor. This is restoration. And the king? He is not merely political. He is messianic. And my servant David shall be king over them, and they shall all have one shepherd. The son of David, the Messiah, Jesus, he will reign over a reunited Israel, not a partial remnant, but the full house of Jacob. The tribes must return, because the throne of David is not complete without the 12, the 144,000. 12 tribes sealed. The final book of the Bible Revelation is a vision of the end. It is filled with symbols and mysteries, but it also contains lists, precise, deliberate, divine. In Revelation 7 we read, I heard the number of the sealed 144,000, sealed from every tribe of the sons of Israel, 12,000 from each tribe. Reuben, Gad, Asher, Naphtali, Manasseh, Simeon, Levi, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph, Benjamin, Judah. They are not called spiritual tribes, not symbolic tribes. They are named, each one, a remnant from every lost tribe. God knows where they are, even if the world does not. And in the final hour they will be sealed, marked for his purpose. Some believe these 144,000 will be witnesses, proclaiming the truth of the Messiah to the nations in the midst of tribulation. Others believe they will be gathered into a new exodus as the world collapses and Zion is restored. But one thing is clear: the tribes are not forgotten, they are remembered. They are part of the final song, the valley of dry bones. Israel's resurrection. Ezekiel saw something else, a valley filled with bones, dry, scattered, lifeless. And then the voice of God, Son of man, can these bones live? The prophet answered, O Lord God, you know. And the Lord said, Prophesy to these bones, ... and they shall live. The bones rattled, they came together. Flesh covered them, breath entered them, and they stood a vast army. Then God revealed the meaning. Son of man, these bones are the whole house of Israel. Not part, not Judah alone, the whole house, dead in exile, scattered in history, but not beyond resurrection. God will breathe upon them again. He will raise them from the graves of forgetfulness. He will bring them home. The nations will tremble. The return of the tribes will not be quiet. It will not go unnoticed. Isaiah says, Nations shall come to your light, and kings to the brightness of your rising. And again, then they shall bring all your brothers from all the nations as an offering to the Lord. The nations will witness it. The world will see the people who vanished return, like rivers flowing back to their source, like stars returning to the sky. The gathering of Israel will be one of the final acts in the divine drama. It is not merely about geography. It is about identity. It is about covenant. It is about a father calling his children from the ends of the earth. Could we be watching it unfold? Is it possible that the regathering has already begun? Every year, more tribes and communities come forward, lost sons of Israel, claiming their heritage. From India, from Africa, from Central Asia, some welcomed, some tested, some still waiting. Could it be that God is preparing the final movement even now? That the footsteps of the scattered are already turning toward Zion? That the Spirit is stirring hearts that have long forgotten their name? We may not see it clearly, but prophecy is moving. And when the trumpet sounds, the tribes will rise. They will take their place again. not as scattered remnants, but as a nation restored. In the final segment of our journey, we will reflect on what this means for the world, for the church, and for you. Because if the tribes are returning, then the King is not far behind. The Lord is not slow to fulfill his promise, as some count slowness, but is patient toward you. The story of the lost tribes is not merely about ancient geography or forgotten peoples. It is about God, his voice, his covenant, his mercy, and above all, his faithfulness. We began with a mystery: 10 tribes, gone without a trace, uprooted by empire, erased from maps, silenced by time. But as we followed the thread through scripture, prophecy, history, and legend, we found something deeper. They were never truly lost. They were never abandoned, because God, unlike man, does not forget. The shepherd who counts every sheep, have you ever lost something precious? A letter, a keepsake, a voice from the past? You search, you retrace your steps. And even if years pass, you remember. Now imagine the heart of God. He is the shepherd who leaves the 99 to find the one. He is the Father who scans the horizon for the prodigal's return. He is the King who seals the names of his people in his book, never to be erased. So when 10 tribes vanished into the winds of Assyria, God did not turn the page. He wrote their names in eternity: Ephraim, Zebulun, Naphtali, Asher, Reuben, Dan, Simeon, Issachar, Gad, Manasseh. He remembered them all. Not one was forgotten. Not one was beyond his reach. Can a woman forget her nursing child? ... Yet I will not forget you. Behold, I have engraved you on the palms of my hands. This is what the lost tribes teach us. God's faithfulness is not bound by time. It is not erased by rebellion. It is not broken by distance. A story bigger than we knew. The scattering of Israel was not chaos. It was choreography. The exile was not the end. It was preparation. God sent his people into the nations, not only as judgment, but as a mystery that would unfold across ages. Their presence hidden among tribes and peoples was like yeast mixed into dough. Small, invisible, transformative, they were scattered like seed. And in the last days they will sprout. The dry bones will rise. The nations will awaken. And all of Israel shall be saved. What does this mean for the church? Some may wonder, what does this story of ancient tribes have to do with believers today? The answer is everything, because the God who keeps his promises to Israel is the same God who keeps his promises to you. If he remembers the sons of Dan scattered for 2,700 years, if he searches out the descendants of Ephraim hidden in forests and villages and deserts, then surely he will not forget his word over your life. He is faithful. When you feel lost, he knows where you are. When you feel forgotten, he sees you. When you wander, he pursues you, because the heart of the Father never changes. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And the grafting in of the Gentiles, the mystery of the church, was not a replacement of Israel, but a widening of the family. You were adopted into a covenant written in eternity. You who once were far off have been brought near by the blood of Christ. So when the tribes come home, when the family is gathered, you too will rejoice, because this is your story now. The echoes of a scattered nation. Somewhere tonight, a child lies down in a remote corner of the earth. They do not know they are part of a promise. They do not know their ancestors once stood at Mount Sinai, but heaven knows. And one day a whisper will awaken in their spirit, a song their ancestors used to sing, a dream, a calling, and they will rise, and they will come, and the banner of Israel will be lifted once more, not in the strength of politics or armies, but by the hand of the living God. And the nations will ask, who are these that fly like a cloud? Who are these who return from afar? And the answer will come, these are the lost, found. These are the scattered, gathered. These are the forgotten, remembered. So what now? The story is not over. We are living in the in-between, between scattering and gathering, between exile and homecoming, between the cross and the crown. But the signs are stirring, and the God who kept his covenant for thousands of years is still at work. So be watchful, be ready, pray for the tribes, pray for Israel, and search your own heart. Have you wandered? Have you forgotten who you are? Then hear the same call that will echo to the ends of the earth in the last days, come home. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people. The King is coming, and all of Israel will be gathered, and when they are, he will reign forever.